Welcome back, guys. Today we'll be using Tkinter to build a picture slideshow. So let's get started. To start off, we will import in Tkinter as TK. Then we will use the Python image library, and from that we will import in image and image TK. We will also use the random module in this program, and we will also use GLOB. And what this is going to allow us to do, this module, is it's going to allow us to basically transverse through a file directory and basically bring out all of the files inside of it, so we can then reference those files. So to start off, we're going to define a class, and we're going to call it GUI. And all of our coding for our Tkinter pages is going to be done inside this class. There's many benefits of using classes when coding, but one of them is that we don't have to define global variables. Inside a class, all of the functions that are defined, they can use variables inside that class by just referencing self. So to get started, let's do define init, and let's do self. And then we're going to define our main window, which is going to be main win. Then let's do self.mainWin is equal to main win, and self.mainWin.title, and let's call it Tkinter picture frame. And I want the frame to be the entire page, to have the full dimensions of my desk or have my laptop screen. So I'm going to do self.mainWin.state, and that will be zoomed. So now it should be, so when I run it, it's going to automatically be the full size of my computer screen. Then, so this is just going to be a blank window. I want to create a frame inside of it to give that illusion of a border. So we're going to do self.frame and do self.frame is equal to tk.frame main win, and let's set, and so we defined our frame, and now we have to put that frame inside of our main window. So self.frame.place, do relative height is equal to 0.85, relative width 0.9, relative x is 0.05, and then the y is equal to 0.05. So obviously you're going to have to play around. That's one of the things with Tkinter, whatever type of geometry place that you want to use in order to place your widgets inside the window, you're going to have to play around with it to figure out where it looks best. So for this purpose, I had already done this before, so I was just going to use these specific coordinates. But you can play around with it to see what looks best for your computer. So we have our basic frame and window defined. Now I'm going to create a root widget. So root is equal to tk.tk, and then I'm going to define a variable, my program, and inside that program, so we're going to call our class, which is our GUI, and give it the root instantiation that we had given, and then just do root.mainLoop to just have it run. So let's see what our window and frame look like right now. And before we do that, let's give our frame some color. So self.mainWin.configure, let's set the background to yellow. So we would expect the outside to be yellow and the inside frame to be white. So we got our, okay. Oh, that's a lot of mistakes on this one. There we go. Main win. All right, there we go. So we got our frame, and it's in yellow, or the outside main window is in yellow, and then the frame inside is in white, as we expected. So let's continue on. Now what we want to do is we want to write a program that randomly changes the color outside here. And to do that, we're going to define another function inside of our class. So let's do define, and let's call this color, and let's do self init. And basically what this is going to do is we're going to randomly select a color from a list of colors that we want to put in Tkinter. So prior to making this video, I kind of went online and found this website that had a lot of Tkinter colors already in a list format. So let's just copy paste that so you don't have to retype it. So there's, as you can see, there's a lot, but it's just a basic list. So if you just want 10 colors, you can make a list of 10 colors and it would be the same thing. So we got that. Now we're going to do a variable, which would be C, and let's do random.choice from self.colors. So basically what that variable is doing, it's going to randomly select a value from our list from this list. So it's going to bring back one color basically each time this runs. And then we will do self.mainWin. This was that main window that we configured. And we're going to change the background color to the randomly selected color from here. And then we're going to use this cool functionality in Tkinter, which basically allows you to fire off a function any X amount of time that you want. So you can set it to whatever interval you want, and then it can fire that function. So to do that, I'm going to use root.after, and I'm going to give it a time value of 2000 milliseconds, and then it's going to run this function that we defined here, which is this one. And this is all we need in order for it to cycle through different colors. So once our function is made, I'm going to put it inside of our init function, so self.color, and let's run the program and see what it looks like. So there's our window, and you can see that the colors are changing on the outside. So it's great. So now our next part of this program is we're going to use a local library or a local directory in our computer, and which houses images, and we're going to start adding them here, and they're going to cycle through those images, similar to how a slideshow works. So to do that, we will define another function. So let's do define pick and self again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the globe module that we imported to go through a file directory in my computer to pull back all the images in it. So to do that, I'm going to do for, it's a for loop, so for name in glob.glob, and the file path for my computer is, let me copy paste this so it's not wrong. Then I'll explain the code in 1 second. So basically this is the file path on my computer. I added a asterisk after it to wildcard it to say go to this file path and bring back anything that matches this. So it's going to bring back anything inside that folder. And then I added a R in front of it because when you're coding in Python, when you're selecting especially file types, the file types come in different formats and they don't get read correctly. So to put an R in front of it kind of solves a lot of the issues that occur. I'd recommend you go and Google and learn a little bit more about that, because this was something that I got hung up on a lot when I started out coding. So within this for loop, we will set a variable called val, and that's going to be equal to name. So basically it's going to iterate over our file path, and every file name is going to be equal to val, or it's going to be put inside val. And then we need to create a list, which is going to be an empty list at first, but we will append all of these file names to it. So let's do self.pick_list and append this value. So now we're going to have a list with all of our file names of all the pictures that we want inside of it. So that coding will take care of that. Now we have to somehow access each element inside of that list. So we're going to need to make a counter function for that. So let's go up to the top and do self.counter is equal to 0. So initiate it equal to 0. And then we will do self.file, a new variable, will be equal to self.pick_list, and we will give it the function counter. So the counter, as it goes through, is going to go and select, so the first one will be bring out the 0 element of this list. And then we're going to, and obviously in the code, we're going to add a statement that adds 1 to that counter every time. So it continues on and gets all of the files inside of it, because someone can have 10 files, someone can have 1,000 files. That part is going to need to be variable and embedded in our code. So one thing that we need to make sure is, our counter doesn't go above the index value of our list. So if our list has 10 elements in it, if our counter goes up to 11, then this would error out basically, because there's no value for it to bring back. So to fix that part, we're going to use an if function. So we're going to say if our counter value is equal to the length of our list minus 1, then let's just set the counter back to 0. And what that means basically is, like obviously inside of Python, when we have a list, the first index value is not a 1, it's a 0. So it's always going to be 1 less than what it is, in terms of the counter. So once our counter is equal to our length of the list, then we want to reset the counter equal to 0, so the next line of code doesn't error out. So basically it's a loop that's never going to end until we want it to end. And if this is not the case, then we will do self.counter is equal to self.counter plus 1. So this is where we're going to add 1 to that value. Alrighty, so now we're at the part where this is optional if you'd like to do it or not, but oftentimes when you have a picture and you change the dimensions on it, you change the height or the width, it gets stretched out, and the original image loses the aspect that, or the customized image loses the aspect that was part of the original image. So we're going to solve for that, and it's just basic math, but it works pretty well. So we're going to, once we get our image here, so from this counter, we're going to load it in using the Python image library. So we'll do self.load is equal to image.open and self.file. So it's going to open the image that we get from here. And that image in itself, that original image that we get, is going to have a width and a height. So to get the width, we'll do self.load size. So right now, this is going to be referencing this variable. So self.load.size, and it's going to be the first value in this variable. Because when you do when you use the size module, it brings back 2 values. The first one's the width, and the second one is the height for your picture. So let's do the same for height, and self.load.size, and let's give it a value of 1. So now, to determine the real aspect, or the aspect of our picture on our original image, we'll do self.realAspect is equal to self, and we're going to do the width. So the width divided by the height. and that will give us the aspect of our original image. Let me fix the spelling here. Okay, so that's going to be the original aspect of our image. So what we want to do is we're gonna inside of our picture frame, we're gonna set the height equal to 800. So we have to recalculate our width in order to keep the same aspect. So basically we're going to do self.calculated width is going to be equal to the integer of self.real aspect times 800. So basically what we did is so basically the equation is like the real aspect times the height is going to be equal to the calculated width. Since we set the height equal to 800, now we're calculating the width on it. So once we have that, we can resize our image. And to do that, we'll do self.load and make it a new variable is equal to self.load.resize. And to that, we're going to give it our calculated width to make sure our aspect is still correct. And then we'll give it our predefined value of 800 for the height. So now each of our images are going to get sized to a height of 800 and still retain the original aspect that the first picture had. So once we have that, we can, let's define another variable. So self.render, and this is going to be, this part is needed in order to have your images appear inside your Tkinter window. So do self.render and do image tk.photoimage, and to that we're going to give it this variable, our resized image variable. So we have that, and then we will do self.image.config, and we will do image equals self.render. So inside of this, the image that's going to be part of that will be coming from this variable. Then we will do self.image.image, and let's do self.render again. And similar to before, we're going to use that root.after widget, or that functionality, and say, run this code every, let's make it the same. So it's going to change colors and it's going to change pictures at the same time. And one thing that we would still need to add is the widget for this image. So we're gonna handle the image as a label, similar to any other label that gets added to our frame. So we'll do self.img is equal to tk.label, and we will do self.frame. So it's going to get added to our frame, and it's just going to be a label. And we're not going to give it any specific like values for place. We're going to use the pack method and just do self.image.pack. So it's going to get placed inside of our frame, and then it's going to basically display wherever it comes up inside of our frame. So we made our picture. We are basically going through our folder to bring back all the images. We are using a counter to iterate over the list that we create. Then we basically re-aspect the image because we want to make the height 800 inside of our frame. So we have to figure out what that width would be. And then we have some code down here that's needed in order for the picture to come up when we basically want it to go through our window. So we have the final here, which is root.after, and this is probably the most important thing, I'd say. I mean, all of these other things are good to know as well, but you can learn them. But this is something that took me a while to learn, is this root.after. And basically it's going to fire that function that we create, which is this pick function, every 2000 milliseconds. So let's go to the top and let's add in our self.pick function, similar to how we did for color, and let's see if this works. Hopefully not too many errors. Oh, we got an error. So counter is not defined. So we would have to do self.counter here because it's referencing that counter that we had defined in this init function. So let me restart it. And let's try again. Let's try running this and see what comes up. Oh, another one. Has no attribute photo image. Oh, I did a typo there. So photo image. I like to restart after, especially when I'm using Tkinter and images, because it's kind of similar to how if you've ever done web design, you kind of restart your server. That's kind of what this does. Let's try again. Oh, we got something. There we go. So you can see that the background is changing and the images are changing. The only thing that I would want to change is that we have this frame is still white. To give that appearance that it's a real slideshow, I think it would make sense to make the frame color the same color as our background. So that's really easy to fix. So let's go to our function inside color. And at this statement, let's add in self.frame.config. And let's do background is equal to the same color that our Windows one is. So let's rerun this. And there you go. And the colors and the pictures are changing. So that's a very easy way to use Tkinter to make a picture frame. You know, you can add other features to it. Maybe you want to put two pictures at once come up, but you know, this would be the basic code that you know, you would want to use. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please comment and like and subscribe. As always, keep on coding.